The anti-fascist movement in America is controversial, deemed necessary by many on the left, hated by the right.
Prosecutors say Officer Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Quit your job! Quit your job! Quit your job!
Since the killing of George Floyd, far-left protests are a regular sight in major US cities. Left-wing protesters say the rise in far-right extremism, along with police brutality, is driving them to take action. Trump and his supporters say Antifa should be eliminated.
The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses and burning down buildings.
Radical left protesters say they are on the streets, sometimes armed, to defend their freedom of speech and freedom of assembly.
Back off! Back off! Get out of my face!
Meet Jason Charter,
Get out of my face! Back off! Back off!
a self-described Antifa protester from Washington, D.C.
Give me 3 things and I will leave politics immediately. Socialized medicine, universal basic income, and free education, higher education specifically.
So you're never leaving politics?
So I might never leave politics in my lifetime, but I will fight for those things until my very dying breath. Because those are the things that will really create new equality, will really help uplift folks who are down in the gutter and need the help that the government can give them.
Some Antifa members believe the only way to get their message across is to take action, and sometimes that can mean more than just words.
The feds say they have arrested the ringleader of the attack on the Andrew Jackson statue.
Jason Charter was arrested at his residence on Thursday morning and charged with destruction of federal property. Mr. Charter has connections to Antifa.
The accusation is that you were the ringleader of that protest.
Sorry,
Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm laughing because this is something that is so foreign to them, that a group, a protest, what they want to call a riot, which wasn't, is somehow not led by one person, and it's baffling to the prosecution. It's baffling to the police. But in reality, those events were organized by someone other than myself. If they were organized by people, I don't know about it. The fact that I'm called a ringleader when I'm a white dude in a black movement just makes me laugh. I do not recall the day of the Andrew Jackson statue issue. As you've heard, the charges against me against the statue of Albert Pike have been dismissed. I don't know if that's been with prejudice. Unfortunately, I can't talk about ongoing cases too much, but I will say I don't recall the incident really too much, and that I don't know if I was there or not, because I actually have traumatic brain injuries stemming from that time period because I was assaulted by police.
How does it help your cause to bring down statues to damage public property?
The very first things that get destroyed during a revolution are the statues and the monuments to fascism. That happened during the Russian Revolution, it happened during revolutions in Latin America, it's happened during revolutions in Syria, Iraq, Tunisia, as well as Libya. The very first things that get taken down when fascists are being removed from power are the statues, and I don't think there should be a statue of a fascist standing in my city.
Leftist activists, when they face off with the far right, their reasoning is basically that it's community self-defense. When they do activism that, for example, vandalizes or that talks to civilians in restaurants and so forth, basically the premise behind the activism is to say, you know, that there's some kind of problem and people are complicit by just sort of playing into the system and only kind of marginally expressing some kind of support for the issue. So their view is that if an area has been gentrified, for example, that it is justified to go and confront people living there because, in their opinion, those people are gentrifiers and that they have aggressed in a certain way and therefore are worthy of that kind of direct confrontation as well.
Something hit me in the head.
Fort Fisher is a video journalist in Washington. He covers protests organized by the radical left and far right.
I think one big difference between the far left and the far right is how they structure themselves organizationally. So on the right-wing side, you'll have organizations like militias or like the Proud Boys that will have, a chairman or a general, and they'll have ranks, state chapter leaders, and things like that. On the other hand, on the political left, you tend to find that they have an anti-hierarchical view of organizing. So there isn't anything that would be called like a national Antifa organization, and it's more like usually local chapters. So there isn't an Antifa, but there are DC Antifa, Atlanta Antifa, Rose City Antifa, and so different organizations will kind of form up locally, and they tend to consider themselves something like a collective or an organization rather than sort of a structure.
How do you organize? Over the internet?
Through affinity groups. An affinity group is a group of, I like to say 1 to 5 people. Some people sometimes have affinity groups as large as 20 or 30. People that you trust intimately, who you're willing to go the extra mile, to do the unorthodox thing to protect your city.
Is that your mission?
Yes, I believe that the mission of all anti-fascists is to protect our communities from fascists.
But what do you think about the anti-fascist doxing activity?
I think it should continue to happen. I think every single fascist should be outed. They want to try to out us. I'm proud of being an anti-fascist.
For months, many anti-fascist protesters have warned Trump supporters were planning an attack.
Really fired up as they tried to storm the Capitol.
We've never seen anything like this before. We've been hearing flashbangs every few minutes for the last hour.
It seems like they've lost control of these steps.
There is nothing between these protesters and the floor of the United States House.
The vice president had been taken to a secure location.
An armed standoff now off the House floor, and shots have been fired.
One person has now been confirmed to be shot. Unbelievable and disturbing sight coming out of our Capitol building.
And some Antifa feel they could have stopped the storming of the Capitol.
I reached out to aides on Capitol Hill directly and asked if they needed help, and they all told me no.
Were you going to be able to put hundreds of boats on the street? How were you going to do that?
I'm not going to disclose that information, unfortunately.
Come say something to my face! Say something to my face!
I see the videos, you must have seen the videos. Maybe you were on the street when that happened, setting fire to businesses, attacking businesses, or harassing people that are dining at a restaurant, or like a Starbucks, or any other big establishments that are being attacked by anti-fascist activists.
God forbid Starbucks, a multi-billion-dollar company, has to pay for a $10,000, maybe a $5,000 window when people are being killed in the streets. God forbid McDonald's has to replace a window. And God forbid rich white people have to sit there and get spoken to with real talk for 5 minutes of their life while they're dining out, which is a privilege in COVID society. Them. There are many different Americas, and if we don't celebrate those many different Americas, we're going to face a problem, which we're currently facing, which is this major cultural clash. It's something that needs to be addressed immediately. Too many of my friends are afraid to walk down the street without becoming the next Sandra Bland, without becoming the next Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, Deon Kay, George Floyd, or all the other people who have died at the hands of police violence or have died at the hands of white supremacist violence. It's not going to stop. This fight isn't stopping anytime soon. You know, many people are like, oh, Trump's out of office. That means fascism is gone. But there's always been fascism in America. You know, every single president has been fascist to a sense. There's nothing unfascist about American policy.